we're going to do a little series on narcissism. Why do I feel like I say that word funny every time? Narcissism. It's difficult to say, right?
Narcissism.
No, not for you, apparently. You get it right.
Because it's all about me, baby.
Very nice dad joke.
Thanks,
Well
man.
done.
I got the dad bod. The dad jokes are coming.
I thought in this episode, it'd be nice to kind of talk about specifically what is narcissism, and then to maybe do a couple follow-up episodes, because this is a hot topic. We get a lot of questions around this topic.
Yeah, and I think it's good to break it down, and because people have like a generic view of what it is. We can break it down into more of its components.
Yeah. Okay. So welcome to 12-Week Relationships. This is your place for better relationships in weeks, not years. My name is Pye.
I'm Dr. Glen.
All right, Dr. Glen. I would like to kick this one off with, I should also say, we are 1 week into our first cohort, which has been fantastic.
Oh, that's an amazing experience.
Yeah, so far it's, and we are incredibly grateful that it nearly sold out. So we had 15 seats and we put 13 students into them. I guess members, students, I don't know. But anyway, we're having a blast. It's a great time.
And they're from all over too. It's crazy. Like Australia, someone's in Japan, all over the United States. And then just getting to meet people and to do this together, it's already amazing.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And we have gotten quite a few messages since that people are asking for like, when can they enroll or can they get into it? Honestly, the best, we're going to do enrollment at periods during the year. So it's a 12-week program. So we're going to run 4 programs a year. So jump on the newsletter, and that's probably the best place to get notifications about when we're going to be doing another enrollment. And in the meantime, we have tons of great stuff that goes out via the newsletter. No spam.
No spam.
Just all good stuff.
No, it's amazing.
Okay. I kind of wanted to kick this off with talking about what people think is narcissism when in reality, they're just kind of upset at each other and saying mean things.
Can you rephrase that question?
Was that a question or did I kind of get
I'm
into it
not
already?
sure. I guess what I was hearing is like there's like a generic a view of narcissism that it's all like antisocial criminals.
Well, I think people see narcissism as like, like, let's just say you're being a dick.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, maybe I say, hey, can you watch the kids tonight? And you're like, I can't tonight. I got to go do this. Like, man, you're being such a dick. All you think about is yourself. You're such a narcissist. Like it's
I see what you're saying.
an add-on that we kind of throw into an argument, into a conversation, not, but basically when someone is being selfish or when we perceive them as being selfish.
Yeah, it's freely spoken when in truth, they're not really being a narcissist.
Yeah, because we get a lot of questions on that people are like, my girlfriend is calling me a narcissist. Am I one? Or, vice versa, whatever it might be. We get tons of questions around, am I a narcissist?
Well, I think people look for simple answers. So like, if there's a relationship problem, they're like, oh, it's just because you're a narcissist. It has nothing to do with me. It's all you and you need to change. And
Exactly.
that kind of approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start with you're the doctor. So give us the definition of narcissism.
Well, once again, it is all about me. Can I do like the pro wrestling thing? It's all about me. Right?
You sure can.
Thank you. Basically, narcissism is an extreme self-involvement with yourself to the point that you're neglecting the other people around you. That's basically the common core definition.
Okay. So me saying no to you because you asked me to do something doesn't make me a narcissist.
No, of course not. Like if you have things to do or, you just can't do it. Like that's not being a narcissist. That's just you just taking care of yourself.
Okay. So extremely inward kind of thinking in terms of you basically neglect everyone around you. You neglect their feelings. You have a difficult time being empathetic towards them. You kind of only see your own perspective. And it's not in a particular moment. It's just constant.
Yeah, like you're just really into yourself and all you see is yourself and yourself only.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's just a mirror. Like there could be 10 people in that mirror, the reflection, but all you see is your beautiful self,
Well, I think it's important to clarify because on top of the definition of like what it is, there's varying degrees of it, right?
Yeah, there's a spectrum of narcissism. So like on the one extreme end, you have like the criminals and the killers and the people that have personality disorders that are very, very dysfunctional. And then on the lower end, you have narcissism where it can be kind of healthy, right? Like you're pursuing a dream. Like I would say like you have a lot of healthy narcissistic traits because
How dare you?
I'm sorry, man. No, but you do, like, to start all the businesses that you started, and to, even take this on when you're like, yeah, I wrote this book, and, there was like fear about like pushback, but you're like, I'm going to push through anyway. And that's beyond confidence. There's a belief in yourself that you can do this, and there's a healthy narcissism there. So that's on the other extreme end. That's on the lower end.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else that's in between.
Yeah. That spectrum is very important to me to reiterate, because when people typically talk or think of narcissism, I think it's very much like a bucket that they put someone into. Like, you either are or you're not. But there's varying degrees of it. There's a whole spectrum of behavior that could be considered narcissistic behavior.
Agreed. And then if you're putting it in a bucket of yes or no, and that's your lens, maybe you're being kind of narcissistic then.
Oh, right. You flip it around.
Because if you have an expanded view of it, then you're being more open-minded, and you're showing empathy to other people and their conditions.
Yeah, there's the other side of this that I thought was very interesting. Something we talked about in the past that you just mentioned, which was healthy narcissism, right?
Yeah.
This was a concept I actually read by another researcher and doctor that talked about healthy narcissism.
Yeah, there's articles. It was so funny because there was a lot of pushback when you did the video on it. And then some people were like, all narcissists are bad, and how could you? And you're promoting like criminalistic behavior or something to that effect.
Yeah,
and then they had to post the article.
Very interesting, because one of our earlier videos was like, there is such a thing as healthy narcissism. And to an extent, like, we should all, and that was the claim, is that we should all be healthily narcissistic, in that we have a high degree of self-worth, confidence that is tempered by our ability to empathize with others. And that's what, like, we would define as healthy narcissism, was being able to still be empathetic towards others. But when that video went live, so many people got upset, and there was quite a few references to, I think a couple other psychologists and doctors put up videos and sort of rebuttals against it, which was kind of cool. Like, just me, the lowly, somebody caused a stir.
Okay, see, that's humble brag. That's a sign of narcissism right there. But anyway,
I'm super narcissistic. And but they basically said, like, there is no such thing as healthy narcissism. There is, this is a complete fabrication, and it's also very negative to basically put something so extremely bad into this bucket of it could be healthy. And I came back to you at that point, and I go, well, not only is this based on research, based on articles that have been published by other doctors and psychologists of the idea of healthy narcissism, but I think it's helpful from the standpoint of, we need to realize that the only difference between unhealthy narcissism versus like healthy confidence is just the ability to empathize with someone else. That's literally it. That's the only difference between those two things.
Agreed. And I think, through this discussion today, like, we're dialing it down. So instead of just like the criminalistic behaviors, we're going to the middle ground of what it looks like on the everyday, just people that you know.
Yeah. It's a tough subject too, because if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, then you have a very personal and extreme experience with it. So it's tough to hear that there might be something such as like a healthy narcissism, or that any of that could be a positive thing. But in reality, it's actually taught in a lot of places. Like, if you think to, on the topic of healthy narcissism, right? If you think to sports, if you think to a basketball player, they're literally taught by coach that no matter what happened 5 seconds ago, you're going to forget it, and you're going to maintain your confidence, and you're the best player out there. Doesn't matter if you just missed 5 shots in a row. Forget it. All that matters is what you're going to do now.
The next one.
Yeah. So they teach you this lens of dismissing everything else around you and only focusing on you and what you have to do. That is narcissism.
Yeah, that's a healthy sense of narcissism. I missed the last 12, but that means the 13th one is going to go in.
Yeah.
If the 13th one doesn't go in, the 14th one is going to go in, right? Or even like, what about just people in difficult circumstances that overcame insurmountable odds? Did they do that because of just regular confidence and humility, or was there a healthy narcissism that I can get myself out of here?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a belief in myself, and I don't care what anybody else says. It hurts, but I'm going to do this for myself regardless.
Yeah.
That's a healthy sense of narcissism right there.
Yeah, so long as it is tempered with that, again, the ability to empathize, the ability to be able to see outside of your perspective, then you're on the healthy side of that. That is where it should be. But as soon as that is lost, then you go to the varying degrees of negative narcissistic behavior.
Yeah, and then that negative narcissistic behavior comes from a source of great pain. And we're going to kind of dial into that and kind of addressing like where it becomes harmful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we get onto that? You had in our notes, you kind of wanted to talk about two different types of narcissism.
Yeah, so there's basically two types. There's grandiose narcissism and then vulnerable narcissism. So grandiose narcissism is if you grew up and then you're just treated special and like you're better than everyone else and your parents treat you that way and everyone just kind of gives you that kind of treatment, then you're going to grow into this kind of an asshole, right? Like you're just kind of aggressive. You just feel like you deserve stuff even though you don't really work for it.
Yeah.
And you're just always acting entitled, right? It's that kid, like I had a student when I was in the master's program teaching, and this guy was extremely narcissistic. Like he would raise his hand and he'd be like, he would act like he was saying like the most intelligent thing in the world, even though like that was all right, right? Like that was all right. But he would always, I'm going to do this for the class. I think I speak for the class. He would say that I speak for the class because I know what everyone's thinking. And he'd make like these kind of like they're all right. The comments are okay. Like it wasn't even that insightful, right? And then he would turn in his papers, be a C. And then I was like, what do you do? And then he was like, what are your goals? And I work at the movie theater right now, but I'm going to be all right. Like I'm just an amazing human being. So he wouldn't work that hard, but he thought he was like the best thing in the whole wide world.
A crazy sense of entitlement.
Yeah. And that's an example of a person that's very grandiose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we can all think of examples of those types of individuals. And if you can't, maybe you're the one.
Yeah. And then that person, when they got the C, that person came up to me and was like, I showed up to every single class.
Yeah.
And I shared and spoke on behalf of all the students. I should at least get an A-.
That's hilarious.
I was like, but your work is not that good. And then I had to like pull another student's work. I go, look at the work that this is an A paper. And then look at yours.
Yeah.
Like this was like 4 pages. This was like 8 pages referenced and cited and very thoughtful. Look at the difference. But I showed up to class, right? And I was like, dude, like, no. Like the answer is like, you can complain if you want, but no. And that was an example of a person that was very grandiose.
Yeah, and a person that can't see outside of their own perspective, right? All they can think about in that moment is what I did, what I contributed. This is what I deserve.
Yeah.
As opposed to, maybe this wasn't as good as I thought it was. But they can't even see what you're saying because
and then a lot of people talk smack about him, like the other cohort didn't like him and they would roll their eyes whenever he spoke. He's like, I'm going to speak on behalf of the class. And people are like,
but they can't see it.
Yeah, they can't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you mentioned the other type, which is vulnerable.
Vulnerable. And we talked about like inverse narcissists. So this is an example of what this means. So this means like if you came in a very like abusive home or a very dysfunctional home and things are really, really difficult and challenging for you, right? And then when you grow up, because of the pain, that narcissism comes in the form of, I didn't get what I wanted, so I'm entitled and everyone owes me everything. So it's kind of this, their narcissism comes from like sharing their pain and there's like a badge of courage, but people owe me and you better give this to me. And if they don't get that treatment, they start to act out in anger. They start to get really sensitive. They go from hurt and then they just keep trying to take and take and take from you in that way.
That one's really interesting to me because, and like you said, it comes from neglect, dysfunction, but also, again, it could be dismissive, right? Like parents that just aren't there. And to me, in each of these cases, and I read something that was kind of talking to this point too, was that that sounds very professional. I read something. I should give like a disclaimer. We'll give a disclaimer in a minute. But anyway, so that dismissive home, this person basically ends up becoming their own guardian, their own parent. So because their needs aren't being met by the parents around them, because they're in a dysfunctional home or in a dismissive home, they basically end up looking out for themselves. And this becomes a pattern. So the vulnerable narcissist, if I'm not wrong, would be the person that has learned that it's me and only me, and I got to take care of me. Me first.
Me. And then they expect everyone to hear all their stories and their complaints. And you should want to do that for me because I deserve that.
Yeah.
And that's all that they see.
Yeah.
And then people will say, oh, they're not a narcissist. They're just in a lot of pain. No, that's a form of vulnerable narcissism.
Yeah. I had a friend that was very much along this line. And it was interesting because we had known each other for quite some time, and it was kind of the same thing where, he was fun and good to be around and whatnot, a nice person overall, but he would have and it's funny that I'm saying that, because like at the same time, he would have no ability to see what others were thinking or to be able to empathize with any perspective outside of his own. And I remember the relationship kind of took a turn when I had started up my first business, and he came to me and was like, you need to make me your business partner. I deserve this. I've been your friend for this long, and this is what and I was so confused. I was so baffled. And I was like, why do you think that I need to make you my business partner? And he goes, I just really want you to go in business with me, because you got to think that I've had a really difficult life. Like, I have had a hard time growing up, and I've had all these different experiences, and I deserve this. Like, this is, we've been friends for 5 years. I deserve it. And I thought, man, I've had a difficult life and upbringing too. Like, that doesn't make it, like, if you were to go create a business, I wouldn't come to you and say that I deserve this. But after that conversation had ended, and I didn't make him my business partner, but after that conversation had ended, it was so interesting that from his perspective, this was something that he was owed.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until I learned about, narcissism and the different types of it, because he's a person that, because of his upbringing, he learned to become the only person that he felt could be looking out for himself. So he would take from everybody he could to look out for himself.
And then once again, it's a reverse, right? Because, most people identify with the grandiose narcissist, where like they brag about themselves, and they'll do like the love bombing, and they'll start being really controlling. But the vulnerable does the same thing, right? Because they want you to listen to their story, right? Mm-hmm. Take you and, oh my God, and you're like, oh my God, this is so horrible, and you give a lot of empathy and sympathy to them, and it just keeps going, and it's just this endless cycle. And then, yes, at the end, what is it? You owe me.
Yeah.
Give it to me. I need it right now. I deserve it. And it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then people just start pulling away from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know what they are. We know what it is. So when someone you're dating, or when your friend just does something that you think is selfish, they're not necessarily being narcissistic. You don't need to call them a narcissist, right? We don't need to.
I mean, in the least, you could just say like, oh, maybe the behavior might be narcissistic. Like, at least preface it with that.
Maybe we can start with selfish first.
Yeah.
Like, that's what that word is there for.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of a selfish decision.
Sure.
And then if it repeatedly happens,
then you can
you say, okay,
this is kind of a narcissistic behavior, or there's a pattern here.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Let's take the gradual steps, right?
And on that note, by the way, making a decision for your own mental health, like, for me, doing the things that I need to do to kind of maintain my physical and mental health. That would be exercise. It would be jujitsu. It would be the different things that kind of, they sustain me, right? Doing the things that sustain you does not make you selfish or narcissistic. I know a lot of times people in emotionally abusive relationships get their own needs kind of twisted and turn around against them, and they think that they're the ones that are being narcissistic because they're saying like, I really need to get out, and I need to do this, I need a break. That doesn't make you that thing. In fact, if someone's calling you that because you just simply want to take care of yourself or take care of your own emotional needs, it's very likely reversed in that situation.
No, absolutely. And then in that reverse situation, maybe they're being the vulnerable narcissist. They're making excessive demands that this person cannot give to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the narcissist looking for?
So basically, number one, there's a sense of entitlement. They want to feel like they're privileged, and they want to be treated like they're a privileged human being. So whether just because they were born and treated that way, I just deserve it. Doesn't matter what I do. Even if I don't earn it, I should get it. Or the other one is like, I'm so wounded, you better treat me special. And if you don't, I'm going to start getting really pissed.
That's an interesting thing, because it doesn't ever stop. Like in the example of the student that you brought up with the grades, right? Let's say that you gave him an A. It wouldn't make it any better. They would just go on to the next class and go on to the next thing with the same expectation. Same with my friend. Had he become my business partner, it's not as if the expectations would have stopped.
Oh, I need ownership of the business now. What
Yeah.
your other business? Oh, I want a percentage now too. I
Yeah.
deserve that.
To me, that's something that's interesting about this, because there's doesn't really seem to be an end in terms of what the narcissist is actually seeking. It's like this bottomless pit of validation.
Yeah, it's never ending. And if you're the friend or you're the person that's involved with the narcissist, you cannot change them.
Mm.
You cannot. They have to do it for themselves, and it's important for you to have healthy boundaries and to set good limits so that they can work on themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the topics I want to do in a separate episode of, like, can a narcissist change? But before we kind of end this topic, I did want to talk about how do you get through in terms of not assuming that you want to change anybody, just you want to get through in terms of communication with a narcissist. Maybe it's because you're forced to deal with one. It could be at work, it could be at home, whatever it might be. But there's not really a way to avoid the relationship. You need to communicate with that person. How do you get through to them?
Yeah. So with narcissism, it's all about them, right? So then whenever they're frustrated or they're upset, they're going to transfer all of their energy onto you. And then once they do, then you start reacting to them, and then they feel that sense of power when you do, right? So it's like a game, right? So what you want to do is, once they try to transfer that emotional, chaotic energy onto you, you shut it off with a boundary. You're like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, you don't even argue. Like, if you try to argue with them or reason with them, then you're just feeding it, and then you're just absorbing all of their toxicity, right? So it's just, no. Okay, I'm gonna go now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're probably right. Like, if they're saying you're probably right, but can I talk about this or no? And then if they're like, no, then I'm out of here, and you just go, and then all their crazy, instead of being transferred to you, they have to stay with it. And in those moments when they have to stay in their own toxicity, that's when they have to self-reflect and change.
So strong boundaries and saying no with.
Yeah, it's like energy. It's like a video game of energy. Like, they're pushing it onto you, and then you're pushing it back, and then they're forced to deal with it themselves.
Mm-hmm. The other side is that there's oftentimes there's moments where you actually need the narcissist to do something. Like if it's a work-related scenario, right? Mm-hmm. And an explanation like, I'd really appreciate it if you can do this for me because it would help me to do this.
That's not going to work. Yeah, you got to make it about them.
Yeah.
So, if you don't do this, you're going to kind of look bad in front of the staff.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for you.
Yeah.
So maybe you'd want to do that. You want to make it about them.
The positive spin would be like, if you do this, oh my gosh, everyone's going to love the work that you do, and they're going to be talking about this forever.
Yeah, they're going to appreciate everything that you're doing. You're going to look like you're smelling roses, man.
Yeah. So when, basically, if we were to kind of sum it up, then when a conversation turns negative, when they turn manipulative, when they turn to that, the boundary is necessary. And this is, again, assuming that in this type of relationship, you can't step away from it, right? And that could be for a number of reasons. You could be already married to this person. It could be just someone in your family. We all have these in our family, right? You can't really disconnect completely. You're going to see them at Christmas. You're going to see them at different times, or just people that you have to work with and you have to figure things out. So in those moments where you can't step away, then whenever that behavior steps forward in a toxic manner, it's the no. Don't try to ask why. Don't try to, don't try to reason. Say, do you understand why you're like, this is a big request. Do you understand that? Don't do any of that. Just no, I can't. Done. Step away. Then on the flip side, if there is an ask, if there is something that I need that person to do, then it needs to become not why you need them to do something. It needs to become why it's good for them to do it.
Exactly. And then if you can't if it's too like hostile or it's too weird, then you just walk away. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no reasoning or explaining. You just walk, and that's the ultimate thing that speaks to them.
Yeah. So if it's family dinner at Thanksgiving and you're the narcissist, I might say, Glenn, oh man, can you make your famous mashed potatoes? Because everybody loves them. They're going to be the hit of the party.
Yes, and then the wrestler comes out. Yes, it's all about
yes,
me. Yes.
And then you're gonna go around the party and be like, "Did you try my mashed potatoes? They were incredible."
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
We had one episode where we told everybody to tell us LMB.
Oh yeah, that's still ongoing.
That's still ongoing. But we're gonna end this episode by saying, if you listen to this point, you send us a DM that says mashed potatoes.
Okay, yeah, that's nicer.
It's a lot nicer.
Yeah,
will make me question why people are sending me such a rude message. when I've completely forgotten the
See,
conversation.
that's narcissistic because you started it.
I
And
did
then
start it, and then I forgot, and then people kept saying, "Lick my balls." I'm like, why is everybody so mean?
What?
I don't understand. All right, that's it for this episode. So check this out. We would love for you all to join us on the newsletter. The newsletter is once a week. We hit your inbox with some sort of awesome insight. These are handwritten messages by us. They are not like just summaries and lame things that you'd receive. They're really cool. So join the newsletter. You can find it at 12weekrelationships.com. In the meantime, that's also the best place, by the way, to find out about upcoming cohorts and the different programs that we have. In the meantime, we would love for your help. And this is, well, the newsletter is completely free too, but you can help us in another completely free way by jumping onto iTunes and leaving us a positive review for 12-Week Relationships. And if you have a question, a comment, criticism, send us a direct message.
DM. But 5 stars would be nice.
5 stars would be nice
Yes.
on the reviews. All right, that's it for us. We'll see you guys next time.